Hi there, it's Prue from Dying to Weave Studio. Today I want to take you through the tabletop beaming and threading unit. It's a fantastic unit that is an accessory that you can buy in addition to your SAORI loom. Will actually make things a lot more easier for threading up away from the loom where it's a lot more ergonomic, so you can actually thread up at the table. Now this unit is fantastic for not only threading pre-wound warps, but also if your part of creative journey is to actually make your own warps and to wind your own warps, you can do this on the tabletop beaming and threading unit at the table as well. It's really great because it means that you're not leaning over the loom to thread, so it's really great to save your back, and it also means that when you're winding your warps, you're not down on the floor trying to wind it straight onto the warp roller. So the tabletop beaming and threading unit is a really wonderful way to be even more comfortable and ergonomic while you're enjoying your SAORI weaving. Now with this accessory, there are two types of units that you can get. This is the standard unit. Now with the standard unit, it's a number of different pieces, but you have to use a couple of pieces from your loom in order to make the whole thing come together and work. If you don't want to use parts from your loom, if you don't want to touch your loom and take different bits off, or if someone else is using the loom, you can get the premium unit. Now with the premium unit, that actually has an additional couple of accessories in that you add to it, such as the warp roller and the reed blocks. And I'll go over what they do in just a second. But first, let's have a look at the standard unit. So with the standard unit, when you get the box, this is how it comes in the box. So it's quite a compact box that it arrives in. Inside the box, you have a really wonderful comprehensive instructions. And then the actual unit is packaged in the box in different pieces. So it does require a small amount of assembly when you're putting your pillars and your bases together. Once you've screwed those together, and it is incredibly straightforward, you mount it onto the table. And you mount it just using the very easy little wing nuts and blocks there to mount it and make it secure onto the table. Now that we've got our standard unit all mounted and ready to go, we can actually go and take those parts from our loom. So let's go and remove those parts right now. So with your loom, with the WX60 loom and with the CH60 loom, you actually need to remove two parts. The first part you need to remove is your reed cap, so part of your beater, the top part of your beater. Now when you do this, you need to take off both of the screws from the top. So I'm going to take off the first screw here. Now taking off the beater cap will not affect your weaving that's on the loom, so long as you're careful with where your beater is, but it won't affect the warp at all. You just need to make sure that you're not going to be moving your loom very much while this is off. So I'm going to take my beater cap off and I'm going to rest my beater against the front of the loom. This just gives it a little bit more stability than if it's leaning against the heddles. So we're going to pop that there. We're going to bring these over, including the screws, to our standard unit over here. Now I'm going to go down because I need to actually grab my warp roller from the bottom of the loom here. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to release my warp roller. Now to do this, of course, I just need to release the little locking mechanism, and this will allow me to remove my warp roller from the loom. And I'm going to take my brake wheel off. I don't need the brake wheel, but I need to take my actual warp roller out. Now I have, with the warp that's left, all I'm going to do is just place it very gently just against the loom there. So again, you don't want to have to move your loom when you're taking these pieces off the loom. But now I've got my warp roller that I can use with my tabletop threader. So now that I've got these pieces, the first thing you want to do is to attach your reed cap. What the reed cap is actually going to do, the groove in the reed cap is going to allow us to hold our reed with the tabletop threader and beaming unit. So what you want to do is place the holes of your reed cap over the pins that are on the tabletop threader. So you just sort of slide it around until you can find the spot and just put it down on those pins. With your tabletop threader, you'll actually have a couple of small pieces of metal pipe. You're going to place those just on top there, and what you can do then is just place your screws on top of that, and that just helps hold the reed in place. So that when we go to thread our reed, we're actually going to be placing that in the groove of the reed cap. So that's going to be held in place really beautifully. Now at the back, what we're going to do is we've got our warp roller. With our warp roller, we're actually going to insert it into, there's a little catch at the back here that we're going to hold it into. Now, if you are using your tabletop beaming and threading unit, if you're using it with your warp roller from your loom, with the WX60, the WX90, or the Piccolo, you're actually going to need to attach, you've got a latch here, you're going to need to attach your latch on the left-hand side so that it hits on the cog here. If, however, you're using the premium unit or the CH60, you actually are going to attach your latch on this side because your cogs actually end up on this part, on the outside. So depending on what model you're actually using your parts from will determine where you place your latch when you put your tabletop threader together. So in this case, because I mostly use my tabletop threader as a premium unit, I use it with the warp roller with the handle. My latch is on this side, but it can be very easily and quickly converted to be put on the other side if you're using part of your warp roller. Now, as I said, if you don't want to actually use the parts from your loom, you can convert this using the premium upgrade parts. With the premium upgrade parts, what we've got is we've got, instead of our warp roller that we're using from our loom, we'll put that back down there, we're using this warp roller with a handle attached. Now, this is a fantastic bit of equipment. Firstly, because you don't have to grab anything from your loom and have a warp that's potentially just sitting on the floor over there where it could get tangled. The other thing is that it has this really, really fantastic handle. Now, if you're the sort of person who wants to use this unit to make your own warps, this is a bit of a game changer because it's so ergonomic to use and so much easier to wind the warp with the handle. When you receive it, when you first buy it, you'll actually need to you'll get the handle separate to the actual roller, and you just need to screw that in and then remove the safety cardboard around the cogs. So we'll just attach that in there like that, and that just slides into place and gets locked into place with this little spring lock that's just here. The other thing that you get when you have a premium unit is something called the reed lock or the reed holder. So instead of using our reed cap, we're not taking that from our loom, we're going to use these reed blocks. These are fantastic to be able to hold your reed, and you can do this just by attaching them. There's a little hole at the bottom. We're going to attach that just on those little pins there as well, and that is what's going to securely hold our reed. If you have a Piccolo loom, these units can also be used with the Piccolo loom. Now, if you use it with a Piccolo loom, you're actually going to set it, there's a hole at the Piccolo size here. So you're actually going to set your base struts to be in line with the Piccolo size. And with the Piccolo, you do actually have to make sure that you have the reed holders, because that's the only way we can really hold the Piccolo loom. So you do have to make sure that you've got your reed blocks if you are threading your tabletop threader for a Piccolo. All right, so we're going to mount that on there like that. Now, if we're threading a pre-wound warp with our loom, we're going to be mounting our warp on our back roller here, bringing it up over our shelf, and then mounting our heddles and our reed at the front to thread our pre-wound warp. If we're winding our warp, we actually use a slightly different type of accessory for this particular tabletop unit. And this accessory is known as Kenzo's dividing bar set. Now with Kenzo's dividing bar set, this is an extra optional set that you need to get if you're going to be making your own warps with the tabletop threader. With Kenzo's dividing bar set, what you get in the set, I'll open it up, we can have a bit of a look. So we get the actual dividing bar itself, and this is a really beautifully, wonderfully made bit of equipment that's actually going to allow us to separate out our warp after we've made it on the warping frame and to open up the warp ready for threading. So we've got our Kenzo's dividing bar there. Within the set also, you have a couple of pieces of carpet, and these are great for holding our warp in place when we're threading it. And then you get some very comprehensive instructions. This also has instructions about how to make the warp on your warping frame as well. And you get a starting point cord and a few rubber bands to help you attach it to your loom. The great thing about Kenzo's dividing bar set is that you can actually wind your warps directly onto the loom using Kenzo's dividing bar set, or it can be used in conjunction with the tabletop threader. So if you want to be able to wind your own warps at the table, this is what you need in addition to your tabletop beaming and threading unit. And what it does when you're doing it is this again, you're using the pins at the front, and we're going to be adding our Kenzo's dividing bar set onto those pins and winding our warp through Kenzo's dividing bar set. So the tabletop threader is such a fantastic bit of equipment to take a lot of the strain and stretch of threading and beaming a warp at the loom onto the table at a height that's really comfortable. You can choose the height of the table. You can sit at a chair to do it. You can stand if you want to. So it gives you a lot more of an ergonomic option for when you're wanting to either thread a warp or make your own warps. And there's a few different options for you to choose from, whether you want to use parts of your loom to actually use it, or whether you want to add the premium options. And then if you want to make your own warps, adding extra options like Kenzo's dividing bar set will help you and have this beautiful all-in-one warping station to enjoy.